स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of the great master. Today is a very, very auspicious day. As we all know that today the power of Guru Shakti will be manifested 1,000 times more than the ordinary day. So if we do sadhana, hearing the life of the great Guru, the Ishta Devata, Ramakrishna, is also a sadhana. Whatever we do today, it becomes very beneficial. So I didn't want to cancel this class today on Guru Purnima, though we have so many other programs, because we will welcome this auspicious day of Guru Purnima with Ramakrishna himself. So without any delay, without any further postponing things, we will just enter into the life and we will be meditating on the Guru, original Guru. So now we will first enter into the introduction. In that introduction to the divine incarnation as sadhaka, divine incarnation as a spiritual aspirant. So in that we are now starting sadhaka and sadhana. Sadhaka means spiritual aspirant and sadhana means the spiritual practices we do. So now Shardanandaji Maharaj wants to take us through what is sadhana, what is spiritual practices, because we should know, we jump into so many things and we do not know the basics of it. So now in this chapter, in the introduction, Shardanandaji will be helping us a lot to understand what is sadhana and who is a spiritual aspirant. If we want to call ourselves mumukshus or spiritual aspirants, then we should know what are the features of a spiritual sadhaka or an aspirant and what is spiritual sadhana, that is spiritual practices. So now Shardanandaji Maharaj, in this part of the introduction, he will take up that thing and help us to understand what is spiritual practices. So now we shall go forward to see what Shardanandaji Maharaj is trying to explain. Sadhaka and sadhana, the spiritual aspirant and spiritual discipline. To become truly acquainted with the state of master's mind as a sadhaka, we must first of all know what sadhana is. An objection may be raised. Why do you increase the bulk of the book by introducing this topic, so familiar to the people of India, who have all along been engaged in sadhana in some form or other? Which other nation of the world has applied and is still applying its powers to realize directly the truths of the spiritual realm, as this country has done since the very dawn of time? In which other country have so many incarnations of God and knowers of Brahman been born? Therefore, it is superfluous to recount the fundamental principles of spiritual discipline to us who are already acquainted with them. When I heard the statement here made by Shardanandaji Maharaj, that he himself raises the objection of the readers, asking, the objection may be raised, why do you increase the bulk of the book by introducing this topic so familiar to the people of India? We know what is sadhana. Why should you just go on increasing it? And also one of the other objection was, which other nation of the world has applied and is still applying its powers to realize directly the truths of the spiritual realm, as this country has done since the very dawn of time? In which other country have so many incarnations of God and knowers of Brahman been born? So when this line came up, I just remembered one incident in the life of revered Ranganathanandaji Maharaj. What was that incident? Now, in which other country are so many incarnations of God are born? So once when Revered Ranganathanandaji Maharaj was lecturing somewhere in the West, I don't know whether it was America or Europe, one of the audience there, the Western audience, asked him, Swamiji, Lord Krishna is telling that yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujamniham. Whenever there is decline in righteousness, that is dharma, I will come again and again. I will take a human form and come down to this earth again and again. So we see that lot of incarnations have come in India. I can hear the waterfall inside somebody's house. I request to put off the mic. Otherwise, I have to hear the Niagara Falls and so many other different falls in different houses. I request very earnestly to put off the mic. Otherwise, I'll be disturbed by all the sound, different kinds of sounds. Okay. So, Revered Ranganathanandaji Maharaj was asked by that European or the Western audience asking, how is that in your country, India, lot of avatar purushas or the incarnations have been born? According to your Lord's statement, that whenever there is decline in righteousness, the Lord has promised that he will come again and again. So there are so many avatars and great people of realization are coming in India only. And whereas in our countries, the West, we have only one incarnation. So that means that the decline of righteousness is very less in the Western countries, and India, it is declining again and again. And so many avatars are coming there. When this objection was raised, Ranganathanandaji Maharaj very nicely gave him an answer telling that, yes, whatever you tell is true, what Lord Krishna has told is true. Here, the explanation is, in India, there is dharma, there is righteousness, so there will be decline. So the avatar has to come again and again. But in your countries or in other Western countries, there is no righteousness, there is no dharma at all. So he had to come to establish the dharma first of all. So where is when there is no dharma, when there is no righteousness, where is the question of decline in righteousness, and where is the question of the Lord coming there? He had to come to establish the righteousness there. There was no dharma, there was no righteousness at all. In India, in this great land of Karma Bhumi, there is righteousness. So there will be decline again and again. And the Lord has to come again and again to lift it up to the higher level. So what a beautiful answer Revered Ranganathanandaji Maharaj gave. So therefore, now we'll go forward. We'll give up that argument and we'll go forward. In which other country have so many incarnations of God and knowledge of Brahman been born? Therefore, it is superfluous to recount the fundamental principles of spiritual disciplines to us who are already acquainted with them. Although what is said above is true, a real need will be served by this recounting, for people generally have fantastic ideas about sadhana in many places. We have very peculiar ideas of sadhanas. Many people will be confusing us, telling so many different types of sadhanas. We have seen some person will come in the TV, there will be some astrologer, he will tell on this day something is happening, just light lamps coming to the street, and thousands of people will be in the street lighting the lamp. We do not know why they have done. Somebody instructs something. There is no reason and rhyming. So although what is said above is true, a real need will be served by this recounting. For people generally have fantastic ideas about sadhana in many places. Having lost touch with authentic tradition, having lost with authentic traditions, they generally identify sadhana with the practice of extraordinary physical hardship, with rituals performed in out of the way places, using rare objects gathered from far and wide, with the holding of the breath, and even with the fantastic doings of deranged minds. We can see some people standing on one leg for so many months or days together or years, and the leg will have become numb and they cannot stretch their leg. So all such fantabulous or fantastic ideas will be there, peculiar things. So they will do all those things thinking that they are sadhanas. So the right guidance has to be given. So Shardanandaji Maharaj, who has been directed by the Avatar Purusha, that is Ramakrishna himself, about what sadhana is, and he himself has realized the Parabrahman, is a realized soul, Brahmagnani. So he is giving us what is the real sadhana. So let us carefully understand what is real sadhana. Otherwise, we are all sadhakas, we are all spiritual aspirants. We'll be doing many wonderful things. We have very wrong ideas. So now Shardanandaji Maharaj is clearing all those hassles and bringing us to what is real sadhana. So again, they regard those peculiar practices which are originally prescribed some great souls for bringing to normality certain minds obsessed with evil impressions and habits as sadhana. And these are being preached as suitable for all. There are still others who lacking in dispassion. Dispassion means vairagya. Discrimination, renunciation is called dispassion. And wistfully craving for the enjoyment of fleeting objects of the senses, such as beautiful forms and delicious dishes, spend their lives in vain efforts under a delusion that the Lord, the cause of the universe, could be constrained by means of certain mantras and practices as a snake. Just like by some mantras and chantings, you can what do you call control vashikarana, put God into some form of what do you call bondage and bring him just like a snake. Therefore, it will not be out of place here to make a brief survey of the truths about sadhana, discovered by the efforts and perseverance of the sages and seers of India through millennia. So we have to bring out what is real sadhana, what are we supposed to do, what are real spiritual practices, and what should a spiritual aspirant aspire for. The master used to say, what is the highest sadhana? What is the end of sadhana? Master used to say, seeing Brahman. What is Brahman? God in his formless and attributeless. God who is the original form, that is attributeless and formless in infinity. So that's called Brahman, pure consciousness. Seeing God, seeing Brahman in all the living beings is the last word of sadhana. Seeing God, seeing Brahman in all the living beings is the last word of sadhana. Now you have to note, see, these are all very important things which we should keep it in our mind. These are not to be forgotten, because we are now dealing with what is sadhana, what is the duty of a spiritual aspirant, because we go on blindly doing so many things, having so many peculiar ideas. So we should be clear cut in what we want and what we are doing. Otherwise, it's all confusion and confusion. All these days we were in confusion. Now let us not keep our mind in confusion. Let us be clear what we want and what is sadhana and what is a spiritual, who is a spiritual aspirant. Now, Shardanandaji Maharaj is bringing the idea, the highest idea. Master, that's Ramakrishna, used to say, please note it, seeing Brahman or God in all beings, in all the living beings, is the last word of sadhana. I'll repeat it again. Ramakrishna is telling, seeing Brahman or God in all living beings is the last word of sadhana. So that's the highest sadhana which you can reach. End of sadhana. Highest practice is seeing God, trying to see God in all the living beings. When you start seeing God in all the living beings, what will you do? Suppose you see your mother in all the female beings. How will you behave then? You'll behave with all the female beings like your mother herself. You'll be serving them, you'll be treating them very softly, not with harsh words, because you see your own mother. So when you see God, in all the living beings, then will you keep quiet if they are in difficulty? You'll start serving them, you'll start helping them, you'll start feeling for them. It's not just sympathy, it is empathy. It should be, it will be expressed in action. So that aspect, a new aspect which Ramakrishna gave to the world of sadhana, which was not there in Advaita, or the highest aspect is in Vedanta, it is told the highest dictum of Vedanta there is, Advaita Vedanta is Jagan Mithya, Brahma Satya, Jagan Mithya. Lord alone is true and all else is illusory. Then another important thing is, which we always tend to forget, Jiva Brahmaiva na paraha. There is no God higher than living beings. Again, I will repeat it. There is no God higher than living beings. Jiva Brahma eva na paraha. There is no other God higher than the living beings. The sum total of all the existence of living being is called God, existence. The sum total of all consciousness, the living being, is called God. So now, see, it is corroborating with Ramakrishna saying, seeing Brahman or God in all beings is the last word of sadhana. So he is there in your father, he is there in your mother, he is there in your brothers, sisters, in your husband, in your wife, in your children, in your neighbors, in all the living beings. So how do you treat them when God is really existing in everything? That is the highest. Then we forget everything. We tend to forget. We become so selfish and start fighting for so many silly things, for possessing so many silly things. We fight with each other and make our make our life a hell, and also make others' life hell. But if you see God, that is the highest sadhana, and that is a reality in every living beings. You need not go to heaven or Vaikuntha or Kailasa. You can make this very, very earth as Kailasa or Vaikuntha or heaven. So that is the highest dictum. The master used to tell, seeing Brahman or God in all living beings is the last word of sadhana. So please note this. This is the ultimate goal of spiritual discipline. So don't have any fantastic ideas that vision, this vision, go astral travels, that and this. Okay, they're all milestones. They're to show you, suppose you are going to some other place. Okay, let us think that we are in Johannesburg now, you are moving to Durban. On the way, there will be so many stone markings there telling that the another after 300 kilometers, you will find Durban. You'll feel happy. Oh, we are inching nearer to Durban, my goal. Then another 100 kilometers, it will tell 200 kilometers more. Like that, so will be so many different boards and signal signposts telling you that you are moving towards Durban. So that's all. All these things, astral travels, that and these are only small indications that you are moving forward. That's all, nothing more than that. But you should be very, very clear about your goal. What is that? This is the ultimate goal of spiritual disciplines. What is that? Seeing Brahman, seeing God in all the living beings is the last word of sadhana. So now, why should you be afraid that coronavirus is coming and attacking me? It will kill them. Even in that microbe, even in that virus, it is the same Parabrahma, the Lord, who is there. At the most, the cells in this body may disintegrate because of that. So why should you be afraid? Everywhere it is the same. In all the living beings, it is the Lord. So if you have this idea, your idea of fear will go away. That's why I always repeat that Corona Mataji, I will tell. Divine Mother, which is the nature, part of the nature. Then instead of COVID-19, I always join one C instead of C, G, and N, it becomes Govind. Govinda, saying everything, the name, the moment you utter Govind, then all that fear is forgotten and you become so happy. Govinda, the Lord, Namasmarana will happen. You just attitude, change your attitude. So seeing Brahman or God in all the beings is the last word of sadhana. This is the ultimate goal of spiritual disciplines. And the Vedas and the Upanishad, the most authoritative scriptures of Hindus. Vedas and Upanishads, the most authoritative scriptures, the highest scriptures of Hindus, support this idea. Whatever you see in the world, gross or subtle, sentient or insentient, bricks and beams, mud and stone, plants and trees, men and animals, gods and demigods, are all, they say, the non-dual Brahman, that one Akhanda Satchit Ananda Parabrahma Swarupa, that is God, that one Brahman, a God. Everything, you cannot exclude anything, including everything, every bit of it, it is just God and God alone, nothing other than that. It is a reality of Brahman alone that you see, you hear, you touch, you smell, and taste in various forms. Although all your day to day dealings throughout your life are with it, you are not conscious of it. And you think you are dealing with different things and persons. This will probably be easily understood if we describe here the way of questions and answers, the gist of doubts entertained about these doctrines, as also the answers to the same given in the scriptures. As we are dealing now on Monday in the science of worship in the evening, there it is also there. What is it? Karashuddhi, Asana Shuddhi, Dwaradevata Puja, then Bhumi Shuddhi, everything Shuddhi, Shuddhi, Shuddhi. What is that Shuddhi purification? It's nothing but we are trying to see by different rituals the same Lord in the door, in the ground, in the on the asana which we sit, in our hands, in our body, Anganyasa, Karanyasa. So it's all purification means we are trying to see that same consciousness or God in all the things. And finally we will come to see God in the image and then worship Him who is within us. So that is the goal of puja also. Everything is leading us there only. So that's why, although all of your day to day dealings throughout your life are with it, with God, you are breathing God, you are eating God, you are smelling God, you are touching God. Everything is that is the truth. You are not conscious of it, that's all. And what is the change of attitude? You have to become conscious of it, that's all. So, and that you think you are dealing with different things and persons. This will probably be easily understood if we describe here by way of question and answer the gist of doubts entertained about these doctrines as also the answers to the same given in the scriptures. So we better get the answers from the scriptures because then we will have no doubt, we will get Shraddha, faith. So question, what is the question? We will understand this through question and answers. So Shardanandaji Maharaj himself is asking the question on behalf of us and is answering them from the scriptures. So it will be wonderful, isn't it? See, we are taken through a wonderful way to make it understand so that it will be deep in our mind. Question, why is this fact that we are experiencing the non-dual Brahman, that is God, and not individual objects and persons, not directly felt by us? You're telling that, okay, scriptures are also telling that. Then why don't we feel the universal experience of everybody is that we don't feel, nobody feels it. We are feeling the otherwise. Then how can all the multiple or the universal feeling of so many thousands of people is untrue? And what the scriptures tell and you tell is true? How can you understand that? Why is it? Why is this fact not directly felt by us? What is that fact? That we are experiencing the non dual Brahman, that's God, and not individual objects and persons? Answer. Shardanandaji Maharaj answers. You are in delusion. You are in delusion. How can you detect it till that delusion is removed? You are in delusion. How can you detect it till it is removed? It is only by comparison and real things and states that we detect external and internal delusions. Similarly, you must have that kind of comparative knowledge if you want to detect that delusion. Okay, you answered that question. Next question is, well, what is the cause of the delusion? And when did it arise in us? The next question, beautiful question. Answer given by Shardanandaji Maharaj through the scriptures. It tells the cause of delusion here is the same as it is everywhere. It is ignorance, absence of knowledge, ignorance. Just like you can't see somewhere in a dark room, what is the cause? Darkness. What is the darkness? Absence of light. What is the remedy? Bring the light. So will it take thousands of years to get light in a dark room for which is dark for thousands of years? No, that very moment you will get it. So delusion and darkness are not something which is there. What is cold? Is there something, a thing called cold? No, there is no object called cold at all. It is absence of heat. What is darkness? Is there anything called darkness? No, nothing called darkness is there. Then what is darkness? Absence of light. So what is ignorance? Is it present there? What is ignorance? There is no thing called ignorance. But then what is it? Absence of knowledge. So it is ignorance. How can you know what that ignorance, how that ignorance arose? How can you know when that ignorance arose? As long as you are in ignorance, your efforts to know its origin are in vain. As long as you are in ignorance, your efforts to know its origin are in vain. I think somebody's mic is still making the sound. I earnestly request to put off the mic, please. I don't mind if your mic is on, but the sound again and again takes away my focus. My concentration will go away. I request you to put off the mic, please. The cause of delusion here is the same as it is everywhere. It is ignorance. How can you know when that ignorance arose? As long as you are in ignorance, your efforts to know its origin are in vain. As long as one dreams a dream, one remains convinced that it is real. As long as you are in the dream, you cannot understand that you are in the dream. Only when the dream is broken and you wake up, you will come to know that you were in the dream. So this life is also like that. You are in the life of ignorance. Until unless that ignorance breaks, you cannot understand or you cannot find out the cause of ignorance. When sleep breaks, the dream is compared with the waking state and is known as unreal. You may raise the objection that certain persons have sometimes the feeling that they are dreaming when they are actually in the dream state itself. So yes, sometimes when we are in the dream, we feel that we are in the dream. So that what if we raise that objection? But there also they get that knowledge from the memory of the waking state. What a wonderful answer. But they get the knowledge from the memory of the waking state. Similarly, some people are seen to have the memory of the reality of non-dual Brahman when they are conscious of the world in the waking state. Because your true nature, the real knowledge is of the non-dual Brahman, that is God. So that memory of that is making you understand, even in this waking state, that is the truth. Turiya Avastha, that is a real state. And we have to wake up to that. We have to get out of this delusion and wake up to that. That is the reason why we are doing sadhana. That is the goal of the sadhana. So what is the next question? Then what is the way out? That is the next question. The way out is to remove that ignorance. I can tell you with certainty that this ignorance and delusion can be removed. So Sharadanandaji Maharaj is telling with great confidence. What is that? The way out is to remove the ignorance. I can tell you with certainty that this ignorance and delusion can be removed. The ancient seers were able to remove them and have left us instructions about the method. Question, next question, very well. But before we proceed to know those means, we want to put one or two more questions. You assert that to be unreal, which we and so many others see and feel to be real, and you call that alone to be real, which a few sages, only few sages have seen and expressed. May it not be that their perception was wrong? How can you tell that the perception or the experience that the seers and sages had is true? And what not, we are all feeling, all of us are feeling the same thing. I eat sugar and feel sweet. I eat bitter gourd and it is bitter. It is felt by everybody. So how can you tell that that is wrong? And only that is felt by the seers is true? So that is the next question. So we will see what the answer will be given. It's so wonderful. we will go in the next chapter, because this is the introduction to the spiritual aspirant. We will go to the proper life of Sri Ramakrishna now. Now we were seeing that Ramakrishna has accepted the worship Mathur with great endeavor, with great effort. He convinced Ramakrishna to do the puja. So now he has taken up the worship of Radha Kanta Govinda, and also later on his brother is training him with a very difficult worship of Mother Kali. Worship of Radha Krishna is very, very simple and very easy, no complicated processes. But worship of Divine Mother Kali is very, very full of, excuse me, Jai Ramakrishna, terse and very difficult, complicated processes are there, rituals are there. So now he underwent all the training. We have heard from Hriday that the master's way of worship was an act worth witnessing. We have heard from Hriday Rama, who was there, who has witnessed that. What did Hriday tell about master's worship? That the master's way of worship was an act worth witnessing. Whosoever saw it became charmed. Oh, the songs sung by him in his sweet voice, with his heart swelling with emotions. Whoever heard those songs could never forget them. There was in them nothing of the artificiality of the so-called masters of high-class music. When we see great musicians singing, it is not to please the Lord. It is to please the audience by their circuses. They want to get more name and fame. They want to show off their talents. And they will do so many acts. It may look very sometimes funny. It will be artificial. Their only intention is they want to get some claps. They want to get name and fame. They want to show off. So there'll be so much of artificiality in that singing. They will be adding, instead of the bhava, instead of the devotion in the singing, much of the time, much of the efforts will be given to showing off their talents. So there was in them nothing of the artificiality of the so-called masters of high class music. We all know the great court of that Mughal king Akbar. There was that very famous musician, Tansen. So they tell he's the giver of that raga, Darbari Kannada. That was present in different form. So into Hindustani music or Khyal Paddhati, he put that Darbari Kannada, a special raga. Okay, he was very popular. He could make the lights glow by singing Deepak Raga. He knew how to bring rains by singing Meghamallara, different raga, another raga. So like that, he was an expert in depth in music. So Akbar was very pleased to have such a great musician in his court. Then Akbar was once surprised to ask, who taught you all this music? You are such an expert. Who is your guru? So today is Guru Purnima. So who is your guru? Then Tansen told, Haridas, the great revered Haridas is my guru. Then where is he? I want to hear him singing. No, he doesn't sing for anybody. He stays in Vrindavan. He's a sadhaka, he's a spiritual aspirant. He wants to realize God. He's doing sadhana. He sings only to the Lord, Krishna in Vrindavan, Haridas. What is Hari? The Lord. Dasam is servant, none else. Then, okay, let us go or call him to our palace with all the special gifts and so many other things, and we'll make him sing in the palace. No, he will never come. He will never agree. We have to go, that too in disguise. So Akbar disguised himself as ordinary man, and Tansen went there as his disciple and bowed down to him. And he was now requesting him to sing some ragas and other things. But the Guru will not do that. He only sings to please the Lord. So now Tansen hit upon a plan how to make my Guru sing. He started singing in front of him, did a lot of mistakes. Deliberately, he did a lot of mistakes. So when he did the mistake, the Guru told, "Oh, you're doing so many mistakes. I want to teach you the correct thing." Okay, started singing. Haridas started singing. Now, Akbar was in the disguise like an ordinary man, couldn't contain the joy. Such was the singing. He was mesmerized by his singing. Then he was lost in that. Then he requested him to come to his court. He came to know, he gave up his disguise. Then when Haridas came to know, he told some excuse and went away, and he never came back. He escaped from that spot. No king, nothing. And somehow this Tansen and Akbar came back to the kingdom and told, "I thought you were the best singer and you were the yours was the best voice, but now I cannot hear your voice after hearing your Guru's Haridas. Why is it? What is the reason that his voice is so beautiful and his singing is beautiful, and you, though being such a great scholar, now it looks insipid after hearing, comparing to him." Then he gave a reply. Tansen gave a reply. "Oh, Akbar the Great, I sing to please you, the emperor of some mass of land here, some kingdom here, the king. But my Guru Haridas sings to please that emperor, the real emperor, the emperor of the whole universe." So he tries to please the emperor of the whole universe, the Lord. His music is dedicated only to please the Lord. That's why it's so sweet. That's why, because it comes from the heart. Here, I try to please you, a human being, a king, for some money and for my food and other things. That's all. Earning my food, earning my money. So that's why it is just very insipid. But it's not for money, it's not for gain, it's just to please the Lord. So that's why his singing is so beautiful. That was the reason given. He is trying to please the emperor of the universe, the creator. That is the difference. So you can see now Hriday is telling that, oh, the song sung by Ramakrishna Gadadhar there at the age of that 20, 21, sung by him in his sweet voice with his heart swelling with emotion. So the music, the sound is coming out of the heart swelling with emotions to please the Lord. So it is full of emotions. Whoever heard those songs could never forget them. There was in them nothing of the artificiality of the so called masters of high class music. No special sargams, no complicated mathematical twisting and tongue twisting things, and so many other things. It was plain music, but it was full of emotions to please the Lord with high devotion, full of devotion. Their only merits were the complete identification of himself with the emotion of the songs. Hriday is telling their only merits were the complete identification of himself with the emotion of the song. Now, if there are any singers, you can make these things. Don't worry about what your voice is like. People may laugh at my voice or people may laugh at my singing. Nothing to worry. Let us please only the Lord. Sing for him. Let others laugh. Nothing to worry. But you don't go on practice showing, singing loudly, disturbing others. But in your own house, in your own heart, to the Lord only, you start singing, putting all your emotions. So their only merits were the complete identification of himself with the emotion of the songs, an accurate expression of the same in a sweet voice touching the heart, and the correctness of time and cadence. Whoever had heard the master singing would be convinced that emotion is the very life of music, and that in the performance of most singers, this vital factor of music is thwarted on account of carelessness in observance of time and cadence. Whenever the Rani came to Dakshineshwar, she sent for him and listened to his songs. She was particularly fond of the following song. Rani Rasmani was very fond of this particular song of Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna used to sing this particular song, and Rani Rasmani was very fond of this song. And what is that song? Sharadanandaji Maharaj is giving that song here. What is thy idea, O mother, that thou standest with thy foot on Hara's bosom? The great devotee, it may be either Kamalakanta or it may be Ramaprasad or some other great devotee there. He is singing and asking Divine Mother, his Ishtadevata, O Mother Kali, what is thy idea? O Mother, that thou standest, you are standing with thy feet on Hara's bosom, on your own husband Shiva's chest. You are placing your feet and standing on him. What is your idea? Why are you standing that? Thou hast put out again somebody disturbing me with the sound. Please put off the mic. Please put off the mic. It's disturbing everybody. What is thy idea, O mother, that thou standest with thy foot on the Hara's bosom? Thou hast put out thy tongue out of thine own accord, as if thou wert a very little, very simple girl. I have understood it, O Savior. Is it thy hereditary trait? Did thy mother stand on thy father's bosom like this? There was another reason why the master's song was so sweet. He became so much absorbed in the emotion of the song at the time of singing that he forgot altogether that he was singing it to please anyone. I think until the mic is put off, I cannot continue my class. It is disturbing me. Please, please put off the mic. Some other mantra and other things coming from behind. I cannot concentrate. Yeah, thank you. There was another reason why Master's song was so sweet. He became so much absorbed in the emotion of the song at the time of singing that he forgot altogether that he was singing it to please anyone. We have not seen in our life anyone else singing a song and becoming so absorbed in the emotion as to lose himself completely in it like the master. Even devotional singers expect a little at least of praise from their hearers. Even the devotional singers, let alone the classical singers, they will be expecting that the hearers or the audience should praise them. But with Master, that is Ramakrishna, there was no iota, even the smallest tinge of desire to please the audience. It was just to please the Lord and Lord alone. So Ramakrishna used to be absorbed in the emotion as to lose himself completely in it. So in the master alone, we saw one who felt when praised for his song that the praise was for the emotion conveyed by the song and not for himself. Now we can also learn from Ramakrishna here how to absorb praises, how if someone praises us, we can see that our head doesn't reel with ego. We get bloated up when somebody praises. So how can we absorb very healthily any praises without getting disturbed in our ego, getting egoistic from that praises? How can we do that? So here you can see through master we can learn it. Ramakrishna, even devotional singers expect a little at least of praise from their hearers. In the master alone, we saw one who felt when praised for his songs that the praise was for the emotions conveyed by the song and not for himself. Hriday used to say that while singing, copious tears flowed from the master's eyes. At the time of worship, he got so absorbed in it that he would be totally unaware of anything approaching or calling him. The master said that while performing rituals like Anganyasa, while doing puja, there is a process. We are now dealing with different steps of the puja. At present, we have come to the Divya Digbandhana, Divya Vigna Nivarana and Digbandhanancha. So, fencing the quarters, celestial quarters, from the different weapons and astras from the demigods, all that process is going on. When we go further, we come into this Anganyasa, Karanyasa, consecration of the deities or the letters, divine mantras in different parts of our body and hands. So Anga means body, Nyasa means consecration. So consecration of different mantras or deities in our body, different parts of the body, is called Anganyasa. So while Ramakrishna used to perform this Anganyasa, one of the process in puja, the master said that while performing rituals like Anganyasa, Karanyasa, that is the consecration of different mantras and different deities in the hands, is called Karanyasa. Ramakrishna actually saw the letters of the mantras in bright colors set in his body. So when he used to perform the Anganyasa and Karanyasa, when we do the puja, now we can learn here, people, aspirants who are doing puja every day or learning the puja, now you can keep this in mind. What should happen? What you should imagine? It's a reality to Sri Ramakrishna. First, we can imagine what would happen with Master when he was doing the Karanyasa and Anganyasa, consecrating those mantras and the deities in the hands and the body, different parts of the body. The Master said that while performing rituals like Anganyasa and Karanyasa, he actually saw the letters of the mantras in bright color, golden color, bright color, set in his body, that particular part of the body. So he actually saw that the mantra in bright colors in that part of the body. So that was the intensity with which he used to do puja. He could actually see it. Then he actually saw the coiled power. What is this coiled power? Kundalini. Going up in the form of a snake through the Sushumna to the Sahasrara. Actual name of fire or the sound produced by Shakti heard by the yogins. So now he actually saw the coiled powers going up in the form of snake through the Sushumna to the Sahasrara. In every one of us, in the Muladhara, the lowest end of the backbone, we all know if we study biologically, the backbone There are so many different bones, lumbar bones, they call it. They give the numbers also. Doctors, especially the orthopedicians, the bone specialists, they give different numbers. The lumbar, this one, this at the top and the near the neck and the back and the lower. The lowest is called coccyx, and the shape of that lowest bone in the backbone is triangular. That's why in Sanskrit and in the yogic term, it's called Mula Shungata. Shungata means triangle. Mula means the lowest one, the original, the base. So that is the Muladhara. There the Muladhara chakra exists. The Muladhara. So that is the place of Kundalini, the serpent power. So it will be just like a sleeping snake. It is imagined, not you cannot find a actual snake there. It is just compared. You have to understand by comparison only, by similes and metaphors. So that lowest base or chakra of the backbone is called Kundalini. And above that, we can see that canal, two nerve wire-like thing going up. One is the left one is Ida, the right one is Pingala. So that has so many branches of nerves and going to different parts of the body. It reaches the brain, the end of the brain, and all that thing you know in neurology. But neurology doesn't teach about. They might have noticed that in between these two things, there is a hollow canal. That also may be noted in neurology and in biology. But the function of that is not known there. It is known by our yogis. It's told in the Raj Yoga. It is told in our scriptures. So this Kundalini or the serpent power, that which is just like the sleeping snake, so that when awakened, it goes through this canal up to the Sahasrara. When that Kundalini reaches the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petal lotus there, then that is called the highest spiritual experience, that is Samadhi you are going to get. So when that awakens and start going to different lotuses, what are these lotuses? What are these chakras? They are different planes of existence, our mind, a different level of existence. The basic one is Muladhara. Then the next on that backbone, behind the back, so is the next chakra is Svadhisthana. Then just behind the navel, on the backbone, going up, the next chakra is Manipura, Muladhara, Svadhisthana, Manipura. Then exactly at the heart lotus. So that is the Anahata. Then Vishuddha at the neck. Then we have the Agna between the two eyebrows. They're all in that backbone, that canal, the Sushumna canal. So as and this Kundalini which is awakened goes up, you get different experiences. Now at present in the ordinary level human beings, just like we are leading animal life, the ordinary life, what we are eating, sleeping, playing, procreating and everything, what is happening in this world, so many things are happening, the scientific progresses is happening only by this Kundalini or the energy, the plane of consciousness, moving about only in these three circles, the basic circles. And what is that? The Muladhara, the Swadhisthana and Manipura. Only with these three it will be there. It will not go up. So by purification of the mind and also by heart sadhanas, spiritual sadhanas, then if it is possible to raise it a little upper from this Manipura, then your real spiritual life will start. Until then, all this worldly life, what we are eating, sleeping, creation, procreation, whatever is happening in this world, so many things are happening in this world. All this is happening just with the very little minutest awakening of this Kundalini, the power, the plane of existence, moving of that Kundalini, raising very little activation, it is happening. Then if it really gets activated by the purification of the mind and the sadhana, then how much of power you can get. So that is what is being told here. So just to understand what Ramakrishna is telling, I gave you a brief explanation. It is all in details in the Raj Yoga. So just for you to get an understanding, I explained because the term is coming here. What is that? Ramakrishna is telling that he actually saw the coiled up power going up in the form of a snake through the Sushumna to the Sahasrara. That's why in Hinduism you can see the deities, different deities, whether it is Divine Mother or it is any gods, on the head, just behind that backbone or on the head, you can see a snake with the hood raised. So that is an indication of Kundalini, because that is the plane of existence of that mind, different planes of existence. They're all the chakras, different chakras. So that's why you can see in all the deities, there'll be a snake raising the hood or behind this thing. So that is one of the significance. So that is a Kundalini power. So he felt that parts of his body left behind by that power. So he actually saw the coiled power going up in the form of snake through the Sushumna to the Sahasrara. He felt that the parts of his body left behind by that power at once became still and insensitive and dead to all appearance. Again, when according to the prescribed method of worship, there is the Vanhiprakara Chintanam. One part of the worship is Vanhiprakara Chintanam. Vanhi means fire. Prakara means a wall of fire around us. Chintanam means you have to imagine. You have to take water, the consecrated water in your hand, right hand, then sprinkle that water in a circle around you, a big circle around you. So then utter the Bija mantra of Agni, that is Rang. So when you utter that mantra, Rang, actual name of fire, the Bija mantra of fire, the seed syllable of fire, or the sound produced by its Shakti heard by yogins, Rang. So uttering that mantra, Rang, sprinkled water all around himself and imagined a wall of fire existing around the place of worship. He actually saw an impassable wall of fire. He actually saw an impassable wall of fire with hundreds of tongues spread out, protecting the place of worship from all obstacles. Hriday said that other Brahmanas, seeing his mind quite absorbed, body shining all over with a resplendent luster, said to one another, "It is as if Vishnu himself has assumed a human body and had sat down to worship." The other Brahmanas, the other priests, the other scholars who were watching Ramakrishna doing the worship and his body shining like gold. Hriday said that other Brahmanas, the priests, and other scholars, seeing his mind quite absorbed and body shining all over with a resplendent luster, said to one another, "It is as if Lord Vishnu himself has assumed a human body and has sat for worship." When Ramakrishna used to be worshipping, when people used to see him, they used to feel as if Vishnu himself has taken a human form and doing the worship. That's the reality. We all know that that's the reality. Now going forward, Ramakumar, the devotee of the goddess, was to a great extent free from anxiety about the maintenance of his relatives after he came to Dakshineshwar. But he felt from time to time perturbed over another matter, for he noticed in his younger brother a fondness for solitude. Now, this brother, younger brother, Gadadhara, he was worried, Ramakumar was worried about him because he was developing a fondness for solitude and a queer mood of indifference to worldly affairs. He found in him a complete lack of interest in everything. Ramkumar at first thought that the boy was perhaps anxious to return to his mother at Kamarpukur and was always thinking of her. That's why he's becoming very silent and he loves solitude. So he saw the boy always either sitting quiet under the Panchavati. I told you, explained about what is Panchavati. The 5 trees put in different direction from the same center on the radius, on the circumference of that circle in different direction, the 5 trees, the Ashoka Vriksha, Ashoka tree, then the banyan tree, then the peepal tree, then the bilva tree, then the amalaka, that is the Indian gooseberry. So all the trees put together on the circumference of the circle, the same center, So that is called Panchavati. Pancham is 5, Vatam is trees. Panchavati. So he used to be silently sitting there. Ramkumar observed that Gadadhar, that boy, always sitting, either sitting quiet under the Panchavati or taking strolls on the bank of Ganga, away from the temple, morning and evening. Or he saw him spending long hours in the jungle. Jungle means forest like thick vegetation, it's called jungle. So that existed all around the Panchavati in those days. It was thick vegetation was there, it was just like a forest. So Ramakrishna would be, Gadadhar would be always spending time, spending long hours in the jungle that existed all around the Panchavati in those days, and then coming out of it. Time passed, but the boy expressed no desire to return home, go to Kamarpukur, his favorite place. He was never expressing any desire to go to Kamarpukur. Ramkumar sometimes asked him about it. Why are you in solitude? Why are you not mixing with people? Why are you so silent? Why do you go to that forest? Why do you sit under Panchavati? Ramkumar sometimes asked him about it and came to know that he felt no such desire to go to Kamarpukur. He wanted to be like this. Now Ramkumar asked him, would you like to go to Kamarpukur? Are you feeling alone, loneliness? So we should understand the difference between solitude and loneliness. I will try to tell you about that in the next class. But today, let us now focus on the life of Ramakrishna. So when Ramakumar asked him, would you like to go to Kamarpukur for some days so that you'll feel happy? Why are you so quiet? So Ramkumar sometimes asked him about it and came to know that he felt no such desire to go to Kamarpukur. He thereupon gave up the idea of sending him home. He thought, I'm advanced in age and I'm daily becoming infirm. As age advances, we don't become strong, we become weak. So I'm becoming infirm. Who knows when my lease of life will come to an end? Under the circumstances, he felt that some arrangement must be made to assure the future of his young brother before he passed away. He wanted to make some arrangement for the future of this boy because I may go away anytime. I'm becoming old. So before my lease of life ends, I should do some arrangement for this boy because he had taken up the position of the father, though he's the elder brother, he's taken up the position of the father and he's trying to fulfill his responsibilities. Under the circumstances, Ramkumar felt that some arrangement must be made to assure the future of this young brother before he passed away. It was his absolute duty to bring up the boy so that he might be able to stand on his own legs, earn a decent living, and manage his worldly affairs. Therefore, Ramkumar was much pleased when Mathur consulted him about appointing the boy to do the duties of the temple. He became free from anxiety to a great extent when, after a lapse of time, at the request of Mathur, the boy accepted at first the duty of dressing up the image and afterwards that of officiating as priest, and then began to perform those duties with ability. Now, completely Ramakrishna has taken up the responsibility of doing the puja. So, this made Ramkumar very happy. He now began teaching him the complete reading of the Chandi. You have to do the worship of Divine Mother. You have to learn to chant the Chandi. What is this Chandi? Chandi is another name for Durga Saptashati. Durga, you know, the Divine Mother. Chandi is also Divine Mother in the fierce aspect. So Durga Sapta means 7, Shata means 100. So there are 700 verses in that book, Devi Bhagavatam or Durga Saptashati. The same thing is called Chandi. So usually the Shakti worshippers, the Divine Mother worshippers should be adept in chanting this Chandi. So it's a very powerful, very strong mantra. So if you learn, many of our devotees also learn the chanting. So chanting that it will take more than 3 to 3.5 hours. So there is a very powerful mantra and very effective, very protective too. So now Ramkumar is teaching Gadadhar to learn this Chandi. He now began teaching him the complete reading of the Chandi and the mode of worship of the mother. He thought that the boy would thereby become proficient in worship and would be able to relieve him on occasions when he could not himself attend to the worship. The master soon learned them. Ramakrishna was adept in learning anything. He could just get by heart or memorize mantras in a trice. He had a photographic memory. So Ramakrishna learned all those things in a very short time. He learned the whole 700 verses of Divine Mother Chandi and memorized it. He thought that the boy would therefore become proficient in worship and would be able to relieve him on occasions when he could not himself attend to the worship. The master soon learned them, and knowing that it is not proper to worship the goddess without being initiated in her mantra, resolved to take the initiation. Say again, today is Guru Purnima. We should not do sadhana without getting the guidance or the mantra diksha initiation from the Guru. That is the words of the scriptures. You don't have the permission. You don't have the right to do the sadhana until unless you are initiated by a Guru. So you have to be initiated by the Guru. So now Ramakrishna, though it was not necessary, he himself is the Avatar Purusha, the Lord himself, just to set an example, because the scriptures have told that you should not do anything without the guidance of the Guru. And suppose if Ramakrishna himself does those things, telling that he doesn't need Guru, he could have realized God without that. But to give respect to the scriptures, and so that people in future should not be misguided, telling that, oh, Ramakrishna has done it without the help of the Guru. So why should we follow? Why should we take the help of the Guru? So to set an example, the master soon learned them, and knowing that it was not proper to worship the goddess or any god without being initiated in her mantra, resolved to take the initiation. So now his father in the beginning and mother acted like the Guru, and Ramkumar had taught him everything. But whatever you might have got, you have to take the spiritual initiation from the Guru. Ramakrishna himself has set the model. Those who have already taken Mantra Diksha, well and good. You are very lucky. You are now under the grace of the Guru. But those who have not, please do it very quickly. But without the help of the Guru, you can't go forward in spiritual life. There will be confusion. So you should be always under the caring guidance of Guru and also under the protection of Guru. So Mantra Diksha is very, very important. Ramakrishna is himself setting an example here. The master, now knowing that it is not proper to worship the goddess without being initiated in her mantra, resolved to take the initiation. Now he is going to get the first Guru. Ramakrishna is going to get initiated in the Shakti mantra by the first Guru. Let us see on the day of this wonderful Guru Purnima. We are now going to see who is the first Guru who initiated Ramakrishna into the Shakti mantra. Are we not so anxious to see who is that? Yes, many of us will not know. Has any of you any idea of who the first Guru was? We know Advaita Guru, Totapuri, and the Tantra and Vaishnava Guru is Bhairavi, Brahmani, and so many other things. But do you know who is the first Guru who initiated Ramakrishna in the Shakti mantra? Let us see. A proficient sadhaka. Sadhaka means spiritual aspirant. A proficient means expert. A proficient sadhaka of Shakti named Kenarama Bhattacharya. The first Guru was Kenarama Bhattacharya. The Guru of Ramakrishna, the Shakti mantra was given by Kenarama Bhattacharya. Keep it in your mind. Because on the day of Guru Purnima, we are saying that Ramakrishna is getting spiritual initiation by the Guru. So isn't it a wonderful thing to know that? Yeah, it's something coincidence. It was not in our this thing that this part of the life of Ramakrishna should come today. Today, on the day of Guru Purnima, we are very lucky. Okay, a proficient sadhaka of Shakti, that is power, Divine Mother. Shakti is what? Whose Shakti is it? Whose power is it? The Shakti of Parabrahma, the Lord's power. That's called Shakti here, the highest power. The proficient sadhaka, a very expert sadhaka, aspirant of Shakti named Kenarama Bhattacharya. Again, we are getting the sound. Again, we are getting the sound of the tap and waterfall and other things. Please mute your mic. A proficient sadhaka of Shakti named Kenarama Bhattacharya used then to live at Baitakkhana Bazaar in Calcutta. Baitakkhana Bazaar in Calcutta. He used to frequent the temple of Rani Rasmani at Dakshineshwar, and it seems he was acquainted with Master and all other members of Rani's family. We were told by Hriday that those who knew him paid him great respect as a devout sadhaka. He had been acquainted with the master's brother Ram Kumar for some time past. The master resolved to be initiated by him. So the master himself resolved, he took the decision, I'll be initiated into the Shakti Mantra. To do the puja of Divine Mother Kali, you have to be initiated into the Shakti Mantra. So I will get initiation from this good aspirant, proficient aspirant, that is Kenarama Bhattacharya. Gadadhar himself resolved that I'll be initiated by none other than Kenarama Bhattacharya. So the first Guru of Ramakrishna is Kenarama Bhattacharya. Now, he used to frequent the temple of Rani Rasmani at Dakshineshwar, and it seems he was acquainted with Mathur and all other members of the Rani's family. We were told by Hriday that those who knew him paid him great respect as a devout sadhaka. He had been acquainted with the master's brother Ram Kumar for some time past. The master resolved to be initiated by him. We are told that as soon as he was initiated, as soon as he gave that mantra, as soon as Kenarama Bhattacharya initiated, the master entered into ecstasy. As soon as he was initiated, given the mantra, Ramakrishna mind went into such a high state that is samadhi. Can you imagine to get such a disciple? Very, very difficult to get such a disciple. So the moment he got the initiation, the end of the initiation is raising your mind to the highest concentration, that is samadhi. And here, the aspirant, the sadhaka in the form of Ramakrishna, he got the initiation, and that very moment he went to the highest state, which is the end of the sadhana, that is ecstasy. As soon as it is received the initiation, the master entered into ecstasy. Kenaram, the Guru himself had not got that samadhi. The Guru himself has not got the samadhi. Kenaram became charmed to see his uncommon devotion and blessed him heartily so that he might realize his chosen ideal, which he himself couldn't do that. But he was a great proficient sadhaka, aspirant. So when he saw Ramakrishna, the moment he was initiated, went into ecstasy and saw his devotion, was charmed by that. Kenaram became charmed to see his uncommon devotion and blessed him heartily so that he might realize his chosen ideal. Now, Ramakrishna's one of the teaching is there. Your Guru may not be a realized soul, the Guru may not be very of high thing. Then what is required? It is the disciple's faith. It is the disciple's faith and intensity which is more important. Your Guru may be an ordinary person, but if you have the earnestness, if the disciples vyakulata, the yearning for Lord is intense, even receiving the mantra from an ordinary aspirant can lead you. So here, much more important thing than the Guru is the earnestness, the vyakulata, the sincerity of the aspirant. To understand that, I just want to give you the story by none other than Sri Ramakrishna himself. So if you just excuse me, I have that story, teaching of Ramakrishna here, just I will get that and tell you because it's very important. So, by the teaching of this Sri Ramakrishna here, it will make it clear that the disciples' earnestness, sincerity, yearning for God, Vyakulata is much, much more important. Whoever may be the Guru, that doesn't count much. My Guru may be the highest realized soul. But what if I don't put effort, if I'm not sincere? That will not be of much use. So the disciples' earnestness is very important. Let us see what Ramakrishna tells in that faith in the Guru. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we get one thing where it's not a chapter, it's heading faith in the Guru. Now a devotee is asking Sri Ramakrishna in Dakshineshwar, then what is the way for a householder? Then Master is replying, Ramakrishna is replying, faith in the Guru's words. What is the way for the householders? We householders are immersed in this samsara, in this worldly life. So, what is the way? How can we realize God? How can we progress in spiritual life? Was the question from the devotee. So, the reply of Master was faith in Guru's words. You may be a householder, you may be immersed in the samsara, in this worldly life. Do not worry, if you have faith in Guru's words, you can achieve anything. You should depend on his instruction. See, on this day of Guru Purnima, Ramakrishna is telling you should have faith in Guru's words, whoever your Guru might be. Faith in Guru's words. You should depend on his instruction. Do your duties in the world, holding fast to the Guru's words, like a person whirling around the holding post to a pillar. Is another example given by Ramakrishna. Children play. How? There'll be a post and they will hold that post and go on rounding and rounding that. Then they will not fall because they are holding to the post. Suppose you don't hold to the post and go on whirling round, what will happen? You will fall down and get hurt. But if you are holding to the post and then whirling, whatever might be the speed and whatever might be the time you are whirling down, you will not fall down. Why? Because you are holding on to the post. Likewise, if you are holding on to the Guru, words of the Guru, teachings of the Guru, then like a person whirling round and holding fast to the pillar, you will not fall down. Do your duties in the world, whatever, how much ever worldly you may be. Faith in the Guru's words, you should depend on his instruction. Do your duties in the world, holding fast to the words, like a person whirling round and holding fast to a pillar. The pillar is like our Guru. One must not look on one's Guru. See another beautiful who appears as the Guru. The Lord Himself takes the form of a human being and comes to you as the Guru. When the disciple has the vision of the Ishta, the chosen ideal, personal God through the Guru's grace, he finds the Guru merging in him. What can one not achieve? What can one not achieve through simple faith? Now, Ramakrishna tells a story. Once you can achieve anything, everything, anything and everything by having faith in your Guru's words. That's what Ramakrishna wants to explain it to you. You can achieve anything. What can one not achieve? Ramakrishna is telling through simple faith in the words of the Guru. So now he tells the story to make us understand the truth. Once there was an annaprashana, means the giving the rice for the child for the first time. That is called annaprashana ceremony in a Guru's house. His disciples volunteered according to their powers to supply the different articles of food. So there were different disciples, they were well off, they were rich. So they decided, because the Guru doesn't care for money, so many people, rich disciples, they wanted to bring so many things. and giving during that function. He had one disciple, a very poor widow. She was a very poor widow who owned a cow. She milked it through and bought the Guru a jar of milk every day. He had thought that she would take charge of all the milk that day for that function, big function. She will bring all the milk sufficient for that function and curds for the festival. So the Guru thought she will bring. Now she bought only one pot of milk and the curds. So the Guru was very upset. Today is the function. I didn't tell anybody. Now there is no milk. You have bought only one small pot, a jar of very small jar of milk and curd. Angry. The Guru was angry on the disciple, angry for her poor offerings. He threw the milk away and said to her, "Go and drown yourself." The widow accepted this as his command and went to the river to drown herself. But God was pleased with her guileless faith and appearing before her said, "Take this pot, my dear child, of curd. You will never be able to empty it. The more curd you pour out, the more will come from that pot. This will satisfy your teacher, Guru." The Guru was speechless with amazement when the pot was given to him. After hearing from the widow the story of the pot, he went to the river saying to her, "I shall drown myself in the water if you cannot show God to me. You have to show the God to me. Who gave this pot to you? You are telling God has given. You have to show me the God. Otherwise, I myself will now I will drown in the water." Now, after hearing from the widow the story of the pot, he went to the river saying to her, "I shall drown myself if you cannot show God to me." God appeared then and there, but the Guru could not see him. Addressing God, the widow said, "My dear Lord, if my teacher gives up his body because thou doesn't reveal thyself to him, then I too shall die." So God appeared to the Guru once. Now, telling this story, Ramakrishna conveys the message. Now you see, because of faith in her Guru, the disciple herself had the vision of the God and also showed him to her teacher. Therefore, Ramakrishna is telling, therefore, I say, even though my Guru frequents a grog shop, still to me he is the embodiment of eternal bliss. What a beautiful message. The important thing is the disciple, the earnestness, the vyakulata, the sincerity of the spiritual aspirant of ours is very, very important. Whoever might be the Guru. By your faith in the words of the Guru, if you have implicit faith, then you can achieve anything and everything just like that widow. The widow had so much faith in the words of the Guru. She could not only get herself the vision of the Lord, she also gave the vision to the Guru himself. And now, after telling this story, Ramakrishna is telling, now you see, because of faith in her Guru, the disciple, that widow herself had the vision of the God and also showed him to the teacher. And now Ramakrishna concludes, therefore, I say, Ramakrishna is telling, I say, even though my Guru frequents a grog shop, still to me he is the embodiment of eternal bliss. So faith in the words of Guru, you can achieve anything and everything. Faith in the words of Guru. So what is the way for the householders? Faith in Guru's words, Ramakrishna is telling. You should depend on his instruction. Do your duties in the world. Do everything. Do all the money, earning the money and everything, looking after your father, mother, children, everything. Build buildings together, take vehicles, do all the things. Every duty of the world you do. But what is most important is faith in the Guru's words. You should depend on his instructions. Do your duties in the world, holding fast to his words. Like a person whirling round the holding post to a pillar. One must not look on one's Guru as a mere human being. It is Satchit Ananda himself. It is the highest Lord. What did Ramakrishna tell in the beginning? The highest goal of spiritual sadhana is seeing God, seeing Satchit Ananda Parabrahma Swarupa in all the living beings. So first start seeing that Satchit Ananda in your own Guru. One must not look as one's Guru as a mere human being. It is Satchidananda, Parabrahma Swarupa, the Lord Himself, who appears as the Guru. He has come down to you taking this form as Guru. When the disciple has the vision of the Ishta, when you get the vision, realize God through the Guru's grace, he finds the Guru merging in him. What can one not achieve? That means you can achieve anything and everything through simple faith in the words of the Guru. So, what a wonderful day. Everything is coming. Ramakrishna is bringing everything on this great day of Guru Purnima. This wonderful faith in the words of the Guru, and Ramakrishna himself is being initiated by Kena Rama Bhattacharya. And as soon as he got the initiation, he's getting ecstasy. The Guru is blessing him. All wonderful things we got today. So, on this note, having this beautiful thought of our Guru, the Gurus of Guru, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Mother Durga, herself coming as Ramakrishna, the original Guru. We are so blessed on this day. We heard teachings of the Master about the Guru on this Guru Purnima day. Today, the Guru Shakti will be active 1,000 times more than the ordinary day. 1,000 times more. So let us be blessed. We have already done the great sadhana of hearing the great teachings and great life of Sri Ramakrishna. This is a wonderful beginning. The whole day we will be in that thought, and we will be immersed in the thought of Guru and also Ramakrishna, the original Guru, and make our life blessed. So we have another few minutes for the question and answer. If you have any questions and doubts on today's discussion, you are encouraged to ask.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste. Namaste.
Pranam, Swamiji, on this auspicious day. My namaskaram stays.
Namaskaram, Mother. May I know who is speaking?
I am Bhagya from Bangalore, Swamiji.
Okay, Mother.
And one thing I just wanted to tell you, Swamiji, because you yourself can mute everybody's speaker, Swamiji, so that we will not have disturbance if there is an option like that. Because every time when it is a very most interesting, some sound will come. People, they don't understand why they are doing this thing. I don't know.
Mother, I can't handle. I'm just like one of the weavers like you. I'm just talking here. The handler is another. Our chairman is the host. He is handling it. So he will do it, Mother. He will take that instruction and do it.
Thank you, Swamiji.
I just concentrate on talking, that's all. If I go to do that, again, there will be disturbance and I can't do the lecture properly. I can't talk. So my focus is only on telling about that Master, that's all.
It's very great, Swamiji. We have got a very good thing today, very good topic today. It's very nice, my friend. Humble pranams to you.
Master's grace, it came everything by itself, Mother.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mother.
Pranam, Maharaj.
Pranam, may I know who is speaking?
Maharaj, Madhu here.
Oh, Madhu, please tell Madhu.
Maharaj, doing our japam, how much we should be aware of even this Kundalini and all that? Do we need to consciously be aware of that or just do our japam?
Not at all. Do not worry about that at all. That is, see, yogis have found out what is the scientific thing which is happening in your body. Just like, see, now you're thinking of something, you're doing so many activities, how that energy, the electromagnetic waves pass through the neurons, how does it go to the brain and how does it retrieve the thing's memory from there? That the scientist and the neurologist will know it. So, but when you're doing the action, will you go on thinking all those things? You cannot then focus. So you need not worry about that Kundalini and other things at all. That is only what happens behind the scene. The yogis, the great scientists have found it out. So that is told, that's all. For you to do is just concentrate, focus on God, increase your devotion, then all these things will automatically happen. Then the Guru will handle it and the Ishtadevata will handle it and do that for you. You just concentrate, purify your mind, think of God, that is more than enough.
Okay, Maharaj.
God will take care of it, Ishtadevata and Guru will take care of all those things.
No, thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, Mother.
Pranam, Swamiji. Colin Shetty, Swamiji.
Colin Shetty, please tell. So your son-in-law came because there was no electricity there would be problem for today's class and yesterday's class and everything. He made the generator and electricity. He came and did it. So very kind of you. Thank you for all that arrangement you did. Otherwise, we would have been in trouble today. There was no electricity in this area. Thank you, Kolan Shetty.
No, Swamiji. Yeah, it's a Lord's grace. Swamiji, when we mentioned earlier on about the Westerners saying why we have a problem in why the Devatas don't arrive in the Western world, I thought also, Swamiji, that here in South Africa, we don't have things like the Panchvati people tree and all Amalaka trees in South Africa, but yet we have, we are so graciously have your presence, Swamiji.
Yeah, Lord has come even before me, even before Nishchalananda ji. He has come here and sat here and is doing everything, you see. Even before, he doesn't need us at all. See, just a local person called revered Nishchalananda ji Maharaj, he himself got so much of interest. Somehow he came to know about Ramakrishna with so much of difficulty. At the time, he traveled by ship so many months together, went to Bombay, then revered, Bhuteshananda ji Maharaj helped him to go to Belur Math. He went to revered Virajananda ji Maharaj, got the initiation, then went to Himalayas, he did tapasya, came back to South Africa, established Ramakrishna here. So we don't need, he doesn't need our help at all. He's doing everything. He's coming. Ramakrishna is present even before we came here. So out of the infinite compassion on all of you, the South Africans and all over the world, he's coming himself and doing all these things.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Kolanj.
Namaste, Maharaj.
Namaste, Mother.
Thank you so much for inviting us today. We started our day, Guru Purnima Day, with a very good note. It was a
Yes,
wonderful.
Mother. Definitely, definitely, Mother. Guru's power will be 1,000 times more active today. Make use of it, Mother.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much. And we're looking forward to the other sessions as well. Thank
Yes,
you,
today we have afterwards we have the children's class at 9 o'clock. Hinduism on that also I'll be talking about Guru. Then there will be Guru Purnima program at 10 o'clock. So we have 10 o'clock.
Our master time is 12. Yes.
Yes, Mother. Yes, Mother.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that will be there for 1.5 hour program. Gautamananda ji's message and Sharda Prabhananda ji will be speaking, and I will be also speaking on Guru Purnima.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Pranam.
Pranam. So any other questions or any other doubts on today's discussion? Yes, may I know who is speaking?
This Anil.
Okay, Anil, if you have any questions, you can ask.
Wish you happy Guru Purnima, Maharaj.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, namaste. So I think I will close the conversation with the prayer because I have to get ready for the next 2 programs. If you don't have any questions or doubts, then I will conclude the session with the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Predite Preditam Jagat Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Namaskar to all of you. Happy Guru Purnima to everyone. So, as Ramakrishna's instruction, read again the instructions of the Guru, then follow it. Take the name of the mantra given by the Guru and be blessed. Thank you. Namaste. Jai Ramakrishna. Om Namo.
Namaste.